Hello, everybody from the land of congestion pricing here in London.
So I hear $9.95. It needs to save face. That's what I gathered from that article today. Yeah.
Okay, we are ready.
Okay, welcome to the July 1st, 2024 meeting of the Transportation Committee. My name is Barack Friedman. I'm the vice chair of the committee, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Burke. The meeting is called to order at 7:04 p.m. As a reminder, New York State law requires all committee members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Graciously, Miriam has agreed to take the minutes. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Pete Isman.
Present.
Thank you. Barack Friedman.
Present.
Jason Fromowitz.
Present.
Marion Rowe.
Present.
Larry Shire. Larry Shire. I did see Larry, so.
Present.
Sounds good.
Larry.
Gabe Terzo.
Present.
Jerry Weinstein.
Present.
And I don't see Hader, but we do have a quorum.
Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand now. Okay. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the June 3rd meeting are being drafted. Once they are ready for adoption, they will be sent to the committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you can speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom. And I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. So let's go with agenda item number 1, presentation from NYC DOT on their proposal to repave both tubes of First Avenue Tunnel from East 40th to 49th Street and to convert the west lane of the west tube into a one-way northbound protected bike lane.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Oops, sorry. Can everybody see that?
No. We're not able to see
Oh,
it.
sorry. It helps if I press share.
Okay.
Okay, everybody can see that now.
Yes.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. My name is Hayes Lord with the bike unit at DOT. This is a follow-up to the meeting that we had May 6th. it was a very informative meeting, and I thank everybody who had very good questions and so forth. There was a good dialogue. So at that point in time, for those who are not in attendance, we did not have a design present. So we wanted to, at that point, introduce the project. The impetus of this project is following a repaving that is scheduled to start July 15th. So in about 2 weeks. Now, by way of background, the protected bike lane on First Avenue has been in existence for well over a decade. And back in 2015, we made adjustments north of 49th Street. In the process of making design changes to that section of the corridor, we ended up making changes within the tunnel, which only allowed in the west tunnel, which only allowed for really one through lane and one lane that did go a majority of the way through the tunnel, except it did end up forcing a merge at the end. As many of you know, UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, occurs every September, and in that for that particular event over the past 5 years, a little bit less, we've actually been creating a temporary bike lane that went through the tunnel. So in thinking about, what opportunities might exist with the repaving, we saw this as a chance to actually make an express lane through the tunnel by taking the left lane, and I'll just jump forward, taking the westernmost lane of the west tube and converting it into a Jersey barrier protected bike lane. So this gives you sort of the example of what it would look like at a cross section, and then what it looked like during the United Nations General Assembly. So I know a lot of people had, interest about how we were going to get the cyclists over from the existing bike lane to the tunnel. So this is the design that we currently have. So it starts at 39th Street, between 39th and 40th Street. As you can see, we have the existing bike lane along the curb, and then there's a transition lane, which then comes out to then be able to align cyclists with the tunnel. As part of this process, we need to move the vehicles who are looking to go up to the surface level First Avenue by creating basically a left turn lane, or what we might call a slip lane. The protected bike lane, as I mentioned, will have Jersey barriers along the outside. This is still in draft form, so we're looking at what other different treatments, protective treatments we can provide here to just continue to make it, safer. As you all know, one of the things that does happen between basically 40th and 41st Street is the really the irregular maneuvering across to get over to the First Avenue, the surface level First Avenue. And so there's a lot of different jockeying maneuvers that is going on. So we feel that this design, it's going to slow vehicles, because at certain times of the day, traffic volumes are fairly low. And so speed actually becomes an issue. And that has often created an issue for cyclists who are using the bike lane to approach 42nd Street, and there's that sort of exposure. So by having Jersey barriers along basically up to almost 40th Street, we're going to include quick curb, again, to sort of prevent any last minute, shifts over that would cause a safety problem. So as part of this design, I will say that there is a bike share station between 39th and 40th, which runs 3/4 of the block. We are looking to relocate that. We have yet determined the actual place that it will reside. So, whether it's still along this corridor or whether it gets shifted, that's still in discussion. So as you can see, so they've got the tunnel traffic, and now for everybody who's going to the surface level, First Avenue, because they're doing business at that in that area or heading west, eventually the bike lane actually goes along the curb. This might change in the event that we place the bike share station there. It would be against the curb, so things will just shift out. But this is, you know, a far better design that will help sort of the safety of the cyclists as they're going through that particular block and through the intersection of 42nd Street. So on the exit, the cyclists come out of the tunnel, and at present time, they will be shifting over from the tunnel over to the curb, the west curb by 49th Street. The final design is still going to be worked out, but we feel that this transition, which we use quite a bit throughout the city for this very reason, is a perfect design to be able to then shift cyclists over to the west curb to rejoin the existing bike lane north of 49th Street. Now, as I mentioned before, we are going to make a few design changes on the surface level First Avenue PBL, and that is again basically converting the mixing zones to offset intersections at both 45th and 47th Street. And then between 48th and 49th, really more concentrated where the concrete curb is, we are going to place markings as well as green paint to be able to help delineate where the bike lane is. In this particular section, we won't be able to have it fully protected just because we've run out of room, and so it's a challenge. But we are still looking at potential alternatives that might help a bit. And that's essentially it. So I'll stop. Well, I'll now take questions for anybody who has questions.
So I just wanted to thank the DOT for coming back at a request to give us more design information. Just have one question, and then I'll turn it over to the group. At 49th Street, have you considered giving cars a stop sign so that it be just safer for the cyclists coming out of the tunnel?
So because there's already a stop sign at 49th Street, so that would be the traffic that is already on First Avenue approaching 49th Street.
Okay, there's already one there.
Yes.
It's actually on 49, not on
Right,
First.
it's correct.
Oh, so yeah, so the question was about, First Avenue. As you come up First Avenue, right?
Right.
Seemed to make sense to have the car stop to allow the cyclists to get over to the curbside bike lane.
I'm sorry, I'm at 49th Street.
No, yeah, as you come up as the cars come up First Avenue to 49th
Yeah.
Street, would it be helpful to have a stop sign there to slow the cars down so the cyclists can get over once they come out of the tunnel?
I think there's going to be, and we can look at this at this point in time, having a stop sign has not been as part of the design discussion, but I hear what you're saying because, you know, the motorists that are coming from surface level, coming down by Trump International and then down, you know, there are times where they might be speeding if there's less volume, but a lot of times there are gaps. But I hear what you're saying, and as I said, you know, we're still sort of adding a little bit more design treatments to this to even address what you were mentioning. It may not be, you know, stop sign. Maybe it could be, you know, rumble strips or something to call out. We would have to do an intersection control study to be able to see whether or not a stop sign is warranted to allow that to happen. The other thing is, if you do, as I mentioned before, if you do feel somewhat uncomfortable using the tunnel PBL because of whatever congest or however you want to be able to handle the transition from going back to the west curb and the PBL, you can always take the surface level PBL, and there you won't have any conflicts except for anybody who's coming off of 49th Street. But I hear what you're saying, and we can definitely, I can certainly inquire about that. But it will take some time, so it wouldn't be, if anything were to happen, it wouldn't, come in immediately. It would take a few months.
Okay, want to open up to committee members?
Yeah, I have a question, unless it's been already addressed. Sorry for being a few minutes late. What's going to be the impact to the vehicular traffic at peak rush hours? Is that gonna, is this going to lead to a long buildup?
Not really, because as I mentioned before, with the tunnel, the West Tube essentially having only one travel lane on the east side of the West Tube, the west side of the West Tube, because it's a merge, a lot of motorists end up using it to speed and to bypass other slowing moving vehicles, because as we all know, there are times where PD is doing radar checks of speeds and ticketing motorists, and so a lot of motorists that use the West Tube and the east side of it, they know that that's the target, so they go to the west, use the west. That's just my observations. I don't. It's not very scientific, but so right now, traffic volume, with the problem, as we all know, with merging, that just slows down traffic. So any congestion that's existing now will exist, in the future, and it'll be better organized, and in some ways more so for the entrance. Vehicles are slowing down, so it's much more controlled and organized to be able to proceed north. But like every project that we do, we will make observations and see how well it's operating, based on peak conditions, normal peak conditions, and then off peak, to be able to see if there are any changes that need to be made.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick follow-up question. Won't it be better to actually test it out? You can close the lane and observe the patterns if it does lead to any undesired, buildup of cars, right? It's easy to test.
Right. I mean, that's a good idea. Except that we could end up shutting down the lane and test it out. But, the unfortunate thing at this point in time is, one, the street is getting repaved in 2 weeks. And then two, we're hitting the summer traffic, which is a lot less, so that we're not getting the full appreciation of what the traffic conditions are going to be like until after UNGA actually happens and everybody has returned back to school, work, and things have died down with UNGA.
Can we go on to Larry? Larry?
Muted.
I have
Muted.
questions about the details of the drawing. I'm a little sight impaired because of my impending surgery, 6 a.m. tomorrow. But if you could describe in words a little bit about the treatment of it looks like an 8-foot wide bike lane when there is trash that gets tossed into it, or snow that accumulates at the tunnel portals. How will that be handled?
Well, we'll be working with sanitation. We're making sure that it's wide enough to be able to accommodate not only, and thank you very much, this is a very good question, not only street sweepers, if there is any snow that ends up collecting within the tunnel, and then outside of the tunnel, at both the entrance and the exits. But we also need for our maintenance crews to be able to have access with their trucks. So we have to make sure that, one, our trucks can get in and out of the tunnel PBL as safely and conveniently as possible when they need to service the tunnel. So we've taken all of this into consideration, but thank you for allowing me to speak on that.
Right. Sort of a follow-up on the previous question is, if you make it wide enough for your service vehicles, then you might have cars and maybe trucks attempt to utilize this bike lane to avoid any backup.
Right. And we'll have to be monitoring that. I will say that the entrance and exits will be strategically located. Those locations have yet to be determined, but to really prevent that type of activity from occurring.
Or even drivers accidentally going into the bike lane unintentionally.
Right, exactly.
All right. The second place that I wanted to ask for a little bit more detail relates to the place where you have the elevated sidewalk. I believe you said that will now be painted green.
Correct. Green with edge lines to be able to help direct cyclists onto it and use it without issue.
Helpful. And my last question relates to where this was going to begin. If you could go back to that slide around 39th Street. This place where the bike lane gets bifurcated, which is where you described the existing City Bike station, is nice. Where the slip lane begins, there doesn't appear to be any kind of tough curb or any kind of demarcation of the bike lane that could be protective in any way. I think you had indicated this might be too narrow to put a more substantial barrier up, where you might have cars coming into the slip lane at too high a speed and find them veering into the bike lane. That scares me.
Right. No, and thank you for that question as well. And what I was referring to was actually on the exit. But here, to your point, that's one thing that I'm concerned about too, is that you will get motorists that will most likely, if it's not protected, cross over the bike lane south of 40th Street. And so I'm looking to put in some type of quick curb or something to be able to prevent that maneuver from happening. So if they do choose to do that, the only location that they can do it is within the intersection.
So other than a quick curb with knobby posts, you can't put in something that might deflect vehicles?
Not at this point, because the Jersey barrier is 2 feet wide, and the travel lanes right now are 10 feet wide, and so is the slip lane. And so, that's sort of the minimum acceptable width for a travel lane. So we wouldn't be able to provide something of a Jersey barrier nature.
So you got the quick curb, but you also have the knobby posts with the reflecting tape on it.
Right. The delineators.
Yeah, delineators. Thank you.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you very much for your questions.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jason?
Thank you. A couple questions. We had discussed in the initial meeting where this came up, the potential to shut down that left turn bay onto 42nd Street entirely and routing traffic onto the right side of the tunnel. Was that option explored? Is that infeasible?
Please remind me. I don't recall that actually having
It was a little bit of a pie in the sky request, but my casual observation is that there's not a large traffic volume making the left turn onto 42nd Street from First Avenue, and that existing traffic that's making that left turn may be served adequately by the east side ramp up onto the surface level.
Yeah, well, so I mean, that's what the design has. So we only have one travel lane that is approaching 42nd Street, which is a combination of a through and the left. And you're right that.
But my suggestion was eliminating all vehicle traffic on that ramp.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think for emergency services, we're going to have a lane open. I don't. We can. Go ahead.
I don't think that's an option we would explore, and then the reason why is because if we were to do something like that, then you would probably have backspill and traffic in other streets, and we need to keep that open for emergency vehicles, as what Hayes alluded to.
Confused about the emergency vehicle access, and that emergency vehicles would still be able to make what I would propose would be making the right ramp allow for access left onto 42nd Street and to continue forward. Basically, right now you have that ramp allows traffic to continue forward and left, and then on the east side of the avenue, you allow traffic to just continue forward and potentially still travel left. I'm not positive. So what I would envision would be all traffic that's trying to get to the surface and or 42nd Street, in addition, including traffic to 42nd, making a left into 42nd Street, would be served by that eastern ramp, which currently has 2 lanes.
Right. I see what you're saying. And I do think that would end up creating a little bit of congestion. But I think this was something that, we can look at in the future to be able to make that design change if we feel that we won't be significantly impacting vehicle traffic and causing a lot of congestion. But I think for this design, this is what we're going to be providing.
Okay, that makes sense. In terms of the exit, I would suggest propose put out there for the committee a stop sign for the bike stop sign, at least as an interim method. I don't love it because I think cyclists are probably not readily going to observe that stop sign, but I think it would be better than nothing there.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the things with the tunnel PBL is that it probably will have higher speeds going through it. So where they need to merge and transition over to the west side of the street, they will have the speed and as well as their comfort level to be able to execute that maneuver.
Okay,
and you're right. It's like and the problem is, as you pointed out, is cyclists don't pay attention to those stop signs.
Okay, I withdraw that suggestion.
Hey, Gabe.
Hi. Again, I'm very broadly supportive of this. I'm curious what DOT's rationale is for the slip lane between 39th and 40th. How is that functionally different than the current build? It strikes me as the exact same thing, just half a block south. Like, why that as opposed to some sort of signaling mechanism?
Well, signaling infrastructure will take a long time to be able to process. So it is something that we can look at in the future, but it would require a much more full-blown study in order to be able to do that. So we thought that this would be the best approach to be able to control cyclists. Also, there already is a traffic signal at 40th Street, so it is able to control that that traffic a lot better than, and be able to allow the cyclist to shift around than what is currently designed. Because what's happening right now is because you have the bike share station, motorists who are using the westernmost travel lane end up having to shift over 2 lanes to be able to get onto the surface level PBL or surface level First Avenue. So this is, and we want to be able to make sure that all the maneuvers are being able to be handled on the approach to the intersection and not after the intersection.
Okay, Larry, there's a lot of people from the attendees that want to speak. Can we let them speak and we'll circle back to the committee members? Is that okay?
Well, I have a follow-up on Jason's question about the
Sure.
stop sign. Wanted to suggest looking at a phased signal at 49th Street instead of a stop sign, so that you could regulate vehicles and bicycles coming out of the tunnel and stop the surface traffic while they're both emerging, and then you might deconflict that.
No, it's a good idea, and as I said, we can look into that. It just wouldn't be part of this implementation.
Okay, suggested
Schedule.
for future study. Sure.
Yeah.
Jason, is your hand up from before, or you have something else to ask?
Yeah, another question. As we were talking about 40th Street on the entrance, I suspect this wouldn't be feasible for initial implementation, but is there a possibility to restrict traffic from turning left? No, never mind. Forget it. It doesn't make sense. Disregard.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we, we'll alternate online and in person. So why don't we just start with Autumn Bosco?
Okay, Autumn, you should be able to speak now.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so I am, I'm very, very, very not a fan of the cars merging across the bike lane to the tunnel at a very awful angle. I think we can all agree that cars don't really, like, if the bike lane is directly next to them and they're crossing at a very gentle angle, it's very easy for them to miss bicycles. And so I think that angle should be as close to 90 degrees as possible. I know it's not going to be 90 degrees, but if you have the bike lane to the tunnel move to the west lane a lot closer to the entrance, like if you follow the bike lane that goes to the surface section, and then right before it turns to continue to the surface near the tunnel portal, you could just have it cross there. And then it's a lot easier for the cars to see you. You can see the cars a lot easier. You could even put a stop sign in. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you. It's an interesting design option.
Majed?
Yeah. Thank you so much for presenting. Hey, can you hear me, or should I get closer to the mic?
No, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you for presenting. As a background, I'm actually an urban designer who works with DOT, and I live around the corner from 40th and First. So this is very exciting to see, and appreciate what you're showing. I see a couple of challenges here. Yes, you're going to lose one of the busiest city bike stations on 39, which recently DOT added one on 38 because of how much demand there's here. You can't move it on 39, right? Because that's a really narrow street. And it can't go on 40th because that's where buses, MTAs load. So that's a bit of an inconvenience that you have to look at. But I see issues with safety here. 49th, just a correction, is signalized, not a stop sign. And you cannot obviously turn northbound into a stop sign without changing all the other lights. 49th also connects, it's just a busy intersection. So bear in mind when you're talking that this is signalized. That transition is very tricky from a safety perspective. And the transition, like was mentioned earlier and others mentioned, to get into it on 40th is also tricky because drivers could think that slip lane is to turn on 40th, which is obviously one way you can turn on it, but usually you don't have those recessed left turns in these circumstances. So a driver going northbound on First Avenue could easily make that transition in the intersection, striking a cyclist who's trying to get in the tunnel. So aside, obviously, from the fact that the tunnel is not designed for cyclists, therefore, I don't know if there's a mention of the slope for cyclists to get out of the tunnel and the breathing conditions in it. Actually, ventilation is not that great in it, and sadly, I had to bike in it and know that. So I guess the question is, what is DOT trying to accomplish out of this design? A curb edge protected bike lane that you're showing on the north side of this, the top side of the drawing, makes sense. You know, protected bikes go all the way to 42nd, and then either you signalize or you figure it out. It's not actually huge volumes there. But to send them inside the tunnel, you cited the UN General Assembly, which I gotta admit is a huge inconvenience, but that's just a week or two to do all of the design and really jeopardize. And actually, when bikes are going in the tunnel during UN General Assembly, no vehicles are going up to 42nd on that west side tunnel. So to Jason's point, unless you're closing that altogether, this really seems like you're risking safety for cyclists for very little reward of skipping these 3 intersections over a course of 1 or 2 weeks. So yeah, we'd really appreciate the DOT's thinking on this. And again, the safety issues that don't seem to be resolved at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. I will say that we will be adding signage to be able to, lane assignment signage, to be able to direct motorists. We'll also do that for cyclists, but to direct motorists as to where they're supposed to enter. Yes, there is a risk, as I mentioned before, that motorists might do a late shift in the intersection of East 40th Street while a cyclist is there. But I think with this design and within time, people will understand how this is supposed to operate. And now, because it's much more organized, as I mentioned earlier, there's I'll call it some level of reckless driving, because there's speeding, there's lane changes, there's last minute, oh, I want to go to the surface level, so they shift over multiple lanes. This really, is able to solve that problem and to calm vehicle traffic.
I'm sorry, can I follow up?
Yeah, please.
This is not a great answer. You said with time, I understand. And again, I am fully in support of DOT's extension of bike lanes, but one single driver who has not gotten the note would kill a cyclist. So what is the benefit of 1 to 2 weeks of protected bike infrastructure in the tunnel worth what you are trying to do here? And I get that you have a deadline coming up in 2 weeks to repave, but you guys have not resolved the safety issues, which is the #1 issue.
Okay, well, I think you've acknowledged that the bike share stations are some of the heaviest used right in that particular area. So that just demonstrates that there's a huge demand for cycling in the area. And this is a major corridor to get north. And so there's a lot of cyclists who choose, and actually, if you were to stand out at the corner for an afternoon, you will see a lot of people already using the tunnel by bike, by scooter, whatever means. That is not a car. So there's already a small demand for that. And with this improvement, with the volumes of cycling increasing on the east side, this is just a much better design to be able to get cyclists who want to proceed north and not have to go up to the surface level and deal with all those intersections there. They can proceed north.
Okay, let's move to Gloria H.
Okay, Gloria, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I actually put it in the question too, because this concerns me greatly. I'm a CB6 board member, but I'm speaking as a citizen, a public citizen who lives right at the intersection of East 49th Street. Over the years, I've seen numerous cars come out of the tunnel and try to turn left onto 49th Street that have ended up in the deli. There's been numerous accidents. Bikes do not at all, almost never follow the signals at East 49th Street. And I've seen numerous old people, like one guy really actually yesterday, almost down because they don't. So now you've got 4 lanes of traffic. You've got a bike lane coming out of a tunnel that's going to have to get over to the curb. And you've got cars that have already been trying to go left at the same time. This is like, I'm like flabbergasted by even the thought of this. These signals at East 49th are not followed because it's a hill, okay? So a lot of them get their speed up, and now there's this hill at East 49, and they're like, I'm going for it. It doesn't matter if there's a green light, red light, I don't care. They go swivel in and out of people. And also, too many people have gotten hit there. I actually, one of our someone who works in our building got rolled over by a bike right there in that spot and has damage to his legs, and he's gone through numerous surgeries. That is like the worst intersection already for vehicles and for pedestrians, and now for bikes, because bikes don't follow rules. So I don't know, some people talked about, I would actually want all the bikes licensed. I would want cameras right there to actually take pictures and send tickets, because if you cannot follow rules like you do in Copenhagen and Amsterdam and everywhere else, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, I can guarantee there's going to be conflict between bikes and cars, and it's going to accelerate the problem pedestrians are already having. This is a really scary thing. I'm just wondering, did anyone really study this intersection? I've been living here a long time. Did you look at the accidents already happening in this intersection? Have you actually come and stood on the corner and watched the bike traffic of the ones that never stop for pedestrians? So this whole concern, I keep hearing cars and bikes and cars and cyclists, but I'm not hearing anything about pedestrians. So I'm extremely concerned about my neighbors and myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Well, it's taking longer than I expected, so let's go to a 2-minute time limit, please. Sure, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm Michael Cohen, and I want to know, why can't they have I'm worried that the cyclists won't be able to see the bikes as they turn to the left lane. I think it's good to have a place for the bikes transition, but I feel that maybe there could be an exclusive signal page just for the bikes, a bicycle only signal. But if the bikes get a protected turn to move into the tunnel before the cars are allowed to turn left, and perhaps there should be a mirror installed of some sort, so drivers are more aware of cyclists in the bike lane.
Thank you. Okay, Jennifer?
Okay, Jennifer should be able to speak.
Hi, this is Jennifer Gunsberger. I'm with the Beekman Place Association. And, I echo what the woman before me just said, and being a resident in this neighborhood, the traffic was changed a few years ago to add a median and to close off some of the lanes through the tunnel, which has caused a significant amount of congestion and potential near accidents, as the woman before me spoke, with people trying to move across different lanes. And one thing I'm trying to, and you can help me understand, is the entrance for cars coming off of 48th Street, actually turning left onto First Avenue, and how those cars again are going to be now merging with the bikes on top of the other cars that are going to be trying to turn left. I see it as a recipe for disaster. This is a already very congested part of our neighborhood as it is. Due to the redesign 5, 6, 7 years ago, which has been terrible. And now adding a bike lane, to the point that the woman made, we have a serious problem on First Avenue with bike riders because of that hill not stopping anywhere. And now all of a sudden we're rolling out the red carpet for them to give them more space of our already congested roadways. And to her point, I agree with it fully. None of these cyclists follow the rules. Why do we continue to give our roadways when they can't even follow any basic traffic rules?
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Let's go on to Nathan Levy.
Okay,
Yes, hello. This is Nathan Townsend Levy. I do a lot of work with the CB6 community. I was talking with Kyle Lathady earlier this year and last year also about the much needed feeling that we all have for outdoor spaces and exercise, which is why we've talked so much about getting those outdoor AstroTurf football fields with goalposts outside for the next generation of Giants and Jets and Buffalo Bills to be raised in the glorious sport of football. But in terms of bicycling, as somebody who's watched a lot of bicyclists, I think, and also in the Q&A section, I think we have to keep them in and around Central Park. That's where they thrive. That's where we thrive watching them. I want to see them thrive. I want to see us thrive. And I've bicycled in tunnels. I traveled the U.S. and Canada a lot. And whenever I bicycle in tunnels, I mean, the smell of tailpipe exhaust from cars and trucks and cabs, I mean, it stinks. So I think it's better for everyone if we save that valuable lane for buses and moving vans and Orion movers and U-Haul and Uber and Lyft and taxis, and maybe a sidewalk for slow moving pedestrians. But we got to use that sparingly. So that, we got to use limited tunnel space we have sparingly. And probably it's best for all pedestrians walking on sidewalks to be above ground too. I know later this month, I only have 31 seconds left, but I know later this month we're going to be talking about city charter and how, that's going to be at 135th and Malcolm X at the Schoenberg Center at 515 Malcolm X Boulevard. And I would hope that we can all get together at the Schoenberg Center and agree that maybe having bicyclists in tunnels is not the best idea for recreation, and we'll move on to football fields another time. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan. Let's move to Daniel Sutton.
Okay, Daniel should be able to speak now.
Yes, I'm sorry. I agree with the proposal for a traffic light rather than a stop sign, because I think it would make it more clear to stop traffic, and also to have a traffic camera there that can record video of what's happening at the intersection. So if there are any accidents, it's easier to pinpoint where that can.
Thank you, Daniel. Stuart Tessman. Stuart Tesser, sorry.
Okay, Stu, you should be able to speak.
And here I am. So just a few comments. It's somewhat hard to comment without a specific proposition, but I and this will be a contrasting view, but I think the tunnel is actually safer for everyone. There are issues, obviously, at 40th and 49th Street, but on the street level, there's more potential for conflict, including conflict with motorists and conflict with pedestrians. The tunnel's a nice, clean separation from everyone. I think that it's a much better option for everyone. I do recognize the difficulty at 49th Street. I want to just comment for a second on the comments that bicyclists are reckless. And it's certainly true, there's a lot of disorder on the street. We shouldn't skip over the reality that motorists are also reckless. They're just reckless in different ways. So I don't think we should start punishing bicyclists because many bicyclists don't follow the same rules. At 49th Street, uh, the tunnel merges from 2 lanes to 1 lane. It looks like you're going to try to squeeze 4 feet between those 2 traffic lanes. Is that right?
4 feet. No, that's
Right. So
five. That's
when you're
that's 5 feet. That's the width of the bike lane.
so that's what you're going to squeeze. You're going to squeeze everyone down to 5 feet as they exit the tunnel. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's a little bit uncomfortable. Because you're going to have them between barriers, as I understand it. 5 feet is already pretty narrow on the street. I would only ask that you consider that there are probably two different sorts of bicyclists in the city. There are those who want a stop sign and a red light, and they want to turn at a right angle. And there are those who want to
Stu,
merge
you
with
could just wrap
traffic.
it up. It's time.
Yeah,
We could
that's
wrap it
it.
up.
That's my comment is try to consider both sorts of cyclists when you do these kind of plans. You know, some people are going to want to merge and they're going to anyway, so you should try to accommodate them. Some people want a stop sign, so try to give both options to the bike lane. Thanks.
Thank you, Stu. Chris Sanders?
Okay, just a moment. Okay, Chris Sanders should be able to speak now.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I like that the DOT is being creative and creating safe options for cyclists or attempting to. So I generally support this plan. The only thing I would say is that first of all, I think there should be a bicycle light, that starts before the rest of the traffic. So that way the cyclists that need to cross over can cross over from the tunnel to pass 49th Street or go on 49th Street, whatever. I think that would be easier. And then also I would just add that I don't think we should be punishing cyclists broadly for what some of them are doing, because the truth of the matter is that literally everyone, pedestrians, cars, cyclists, scooters, everyone, no one obeys the laws. No one obeys the laws, and handing everyone a license plate to exist on the street is not gonna, is not a serious solution. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Hindi Schachter?
Andy, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I came to this meeting even though I live in CB8 because I often cycle up First Avenue. First Avenue for a cyclist is extremely crowded, and therefore I was delighted to see that there will now be a choice between the protected bike lane that we have, thank you, Dot, and another bike lane in the tunnel. Several people have said the bike lane in the tunnel will have its own safety issues. My guess is the cyclists who use the tunnel, by and large, will be the more experienced, faster, more confident cyclists. And the slower cyclists, the newer cyclists, they will continue to use the regular surface protected lane. So everybody will probably get an improved experience. Cyclists need safety just as car drivers and pedestrians need safety. I'm unhappy that people make statements like all cyclists break the rules, which is simply not true. But I have to say that I came here because I'm delighted that DOT is making the tunnel, and I think there will be an improvement that will help safety in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Hindi. Helmut Carter?
Helmut, you should be able to speak.
Hi, thank you to the board. Mr. Lord, can we go to the proposed tunnel cross-section? I just want to say that as a bicycle commuter, I'm in favor of the bike lane. I think the DOT is doing the right thing to increase safety, convenience, and throughput for all road users. I also support treatments at the intersection and in the tunnel that's a little more protective of cyclists. Thank you.
Thank you, Helmut. Eric Marzov. Please.
Eric, you should be able to speak. Eric, you should be able to speak.
Sorry, I should have clicked on unmute. Thank you. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for the DOT to come and make the presentation. Strongly in support. I work in the area, so I'm a daily user of the First Avenue bike lane in this section. Having the bike lane in the tunnel, I think, is a huge improvement. And as a DOT noted, there are already people, outside UNGA using the First Avenue bike lane for the tunnel to cycle through the area. So I think making it safe year-round is welcome. I love the creativity at the confused about the exit at 49th Street, and I'm still a bit confused about what exactly cyclists coming out of the tunnel would be expected to do, depending on whether there is a green light, red light, and would love to hear more about that. But I wanted to make a couple of comments about the street surface level bike lane, and I think DOT had acknowledged I would like to do improvement in the area. I would strongly encourage you to try to get rid of the merging zone, especially in front of at 45th Street. I've seen a lot of crashes or close calls in front of the US mission to the UN because there are many vehicles that are illegally parked in front of the US mission that block line of sight of drivers. So I think it's really important that you get rid of the merging zone and replace that by offset crossing. Situation is a bit confused along the park at 47 also. So here also, if you could make things better, to make clear what exactly is the desired path for cyclists and cars, I think that would be a huge improvement. And now turning to the section between 48 and 49, please bring physical protection. Every day I see cars, taxis stopping in front of the German mission to the UN to pick up or drop off passengers, and that's really is an issue because then cyclists coming down, the hill have to merge with traffic. It's very unpleasant. So here on, if you could, make sure that no one can park into that section of the bike lane, that would be most appreciated.
Sorry, Eric, if you could finish up.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, so we have one more member of the public. Our chair, please.
I wondered, we've had the sidewalk condition between 48th and 49th for, 10 years. It's never been painted. Why not? Like, why is now? Is it possible? And it wasn't 5 years ago.
I really don't have a full answer for you. It was it's something that we had thought about. It's just a very small segment, and so to relocate our crews, which are doing an amazing job of marking our city streets for plazas, bike lanes, pedestrian spaces, and so forth. It just did not happen. And so we wanted, because we recognized that it didn't happen at that point in time, we want to now make that correction.
Because I think you've heard many concerns about the grade level that really is not fully protected, which I think most people would use. It would be used even more if it was fully protected. I also wondered, if you don't do this now, when's the next time you're going to pave First Avenue?
Probably in 7 plus years. That's usually the repaving cycle.
Thank you.
So that's it for the members.
actually-
Public, the members of public. And we'll circle back to the committee members to give your thoughts on what you've heard. Oh, sorry. Ron.
Also, just to note that I've seen some stuff in the Q&A, just making sure, I don't know
Okay.
if you see that, but
Yeah, let's go to the Q&A.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there that is related to what's already been asked, but just
It's a lot about entering and exiting the tunnel. Seems to be the primary focus of these. So it looks like concerns about congestion, concerns about bicycle safety, entering and exiting the tunnel. Okay, so all right, let's go to committee members. Please, Jerry.
So thank you for your presentation, Hayes, and just a question going forward and holistically. I'd like to know whether or not you've coordinated with City Bike Lyft. I can imagine as a cyclist that we could have them push notifications for anyone likely to take that corridor when they're withdrawing a bike going north on the east side. And some of the safety concerns that people have raised can be part of that text push notification, telling people this is a new opportunity, protected lane, what merge is like, a few things like that, that could allay some people's fears.
If it's Colleen, if I can just add with the coordination with Lyft. So whenever we have to relocate a station, a bike station, we definitely do coordinate with Lyft. And we notify the community board of the relocation and of the new location that the station is going to be. We look at options in the community board that best suits the need of, the users. So when that time comes, we will reach out. I will reach out to the community board and I will share that location with the community board.
B. Desmond, you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, thank you. So listening to a lot of the conversations, I'm supportive of a bike lane, but it is obvious that 49th Street continues to be an issue. And I really haven't heard anything that will resolve the comments of number of people as to the safety, the pedestrians and all of that. So do we have any other ideas, or are there other things you're looking at 49th Street? And I actually think doing a trial run, even though it's summer and stuff, but to see the traffic flow will be really significant. So can you comment about 49th Street? What have we done to try to really resolve the issue?
Well, I think as everybody has pointed out, it's a lot going on at that intersection. You have the left turns to go west from the surface level or from 48th Street. There's years ago in 2015, we did put in the pedestrian safety islands to help shorten the crossing distance. I believe that there's an LPI, but I'd have to check. And if not, we can advance a leading pedestrian interval to be able to help pedestrians cross, safely.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what we would be able to do. And then, as I've said before, with any new design, and even though the treatment that is shown on the drawing is something that we use regularly at different places similar to this, we do make our observations. And so if we need to make any sort of changes, we will. And, clearly the community board will continue to provide input as they experience this and share it with DOT. And we will then, look at it further to see if there's any additional changes that we can make given the complexity of that intersection, or again, any place else along this corridor.
Yeah, please, Marianne.
Hi, Hayes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm also worried about the safety of the left turning cars on East 45th Street. I'm outside the US Mission pretty often. And I'm just gonna add on to the anecdotes, and if you want, I can make up a statistic and say that about every 2 minutes, there's a very close call between a cyclist and a car. And just from what I've observed, it seems like either the cars don't see the cyclists coming or they don't care. One of the things that'll get my attention is they'll start using their bell, but there are a lot of close calls on 45th Street, and it sounds like things aren't great on 49th Street either. So I just want to emphasize safety of pedestrians and cyclists, because these 2-ton vehicles are really dangerous, and I really see them ignoring us more vulnerable folks on the roads very often.
Right, and as Sorry, and as I mentioned, it's up on the slide, is that we are looking at converting East 45th and 47th Street from a mixing zone to an offset intersection. So that will help improve visibility. We will make sure that those locations are programmed in such a way to prevent vehicles from parking on them, so that visibility is always maintained. And so I hear you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, let me make a comment, come back to you. So Hayes, I'm supportive of this project, and I think it's very innovative. But just a question, as the cyclists and the cars come to First Avenue and they both have a green light, what do you envision happening there? As they're both coming out of the tunnel with a green light and they're both going at speed, what's going to happen after that with the green light?
Well,
I can understand with the red light, they can have an LPI, but they both have a green light coming in. What's kind of the plan there?
Right. So, I mean, with any, a bicycle is considered a vehicle, and so the cyclist must obey any traffic laws. So merging left will require that they yield to the motorist. And as I mentioned before, most of the people that are going to be utilizing the tunnel will be on, and most likely an e-mobility device. And so they'll be at a certain level of speed to either go in front of the vehicle if they feel it's safe, or fall behind it. And if that does not happen at that particular location, again, that could happen, in the intersection or wherever it's safe to do so.
Jason?
So I support the proposal. I think it's important to reemphasize the point that Hayes made, which was that cyclists are already using the tunnel. And so by failing to implement the bike lane here, we make that travel route that is being used today continues to be more risky than any of these solutions that are being proposed. I do appreciate the safety concerns that have been raised, and I share those. But I do think we will, in net, be resolving safety concerns by creating this safer route for cyclists who are taking the tunnel today, as well as by encouraging cyclists to use the tunnel and avoiding conflicts that exist on the surface with other left turning traffic. So I think this is a net win for safety, while I acknowledge that there are safety concerns with these designs. And so that's my statement of support. I have a brief possible suggestion for the future that I don't believe we would be able to have immediately implemented here in potentially resolving some of the issues about the 49th Street intersection. This was an idea I was brainstorming as I was over the last couple of weeks as we've been talking about this. Right now, the traffic past the Trump International goes northbound onto First Avenue, and that creates basically this merging zone that we have. You have 48th Street filtering out into that as well. A possible option for the future that I could see as potentially resolving this would be reversing the traffic on that in front of the Trump property, and making that, instead of continuing north onto First Avenue, have that loop back south, and then filter out onto 47th Street. Basically just having that as a loop and then completely eliminating the traffic moving forward on that down ramp. I appreciate there's a bunch of issues there with that intersection that would have to be figured out, but it's a maybe long-term solution there that could resolve this. Which is to say, I don't think this is hopeless, that there's not a design that can solve this. I think we could also look at things with the light signals, et cetera.
Peter?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that I'm assuming this has all been analytically modeled out as well to see, you know, what the desired effect of these changes will bring. Will there be active data collection to actually understand whether those success markers or expected markers are being met, and what would constitute a failure? And if there is a failure, is the contingency to revert back, or were there other options that are available as well?
Well, we'll certainly, as I mentioned, be making observations and hearing back from not only the community board, but members of the public as they start utilizing this new facility. You know, traditionally, if we're putting in something, you know, we would make whatever design treatments are necessary to further improve the safety conditions. We wouldn't necessarily remove it outright because, you know, for whatever reasons, but you know, we want to make sure that it's, you know, safety and mobility are provided to all roadway users. So we will be monitoring it that way. Data collection, we will do some level of counts, but it's really more, you know, taking a look at seeing how the traffic is operating during the peak hours, off peak, and so forth to see how it's operating.
Dave, did you have a question?
Yes, real quick. One, just a note for DOT. I don't know if it was possible given the timelines, but I feel like an artistic rendering would have been a lot easier for some people than the blueprints. It may have kind of alleviated the need for asking a lot of questions. So I biked this route for many years. This was my way to work. Imperfect as this design may be, it strikes me as more safe than the status quo. And so given that consideration, I am inclined to support it.
Hey, so do we have anybody that wants to bring forward a resolution?
And just to clarify, our executive meeting is on the 17th. And if we do decide to pass a resolution here, it would need to go to the executive committee on the 17th.
Yeah.
For review.
Yeah. B? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I move to support the proposal as presented as the first step in improving the process, with the understanding that emphasis would be on the 4 sections that we mentioned at 49th and 45th, and that we make appropriate changes as we have experience.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we, Brendan, can you show the resolution that we passed previously?
Yeah, so I'm going to share the resolution that the Transportation Committee passed in May, that was discussed at full board and I guess returned to committee.
Okay.
So.
And I see as Jason and Larry. Larry, you had a comment?
Yes, B, you mentioned 45th Street. Are you sure that's the intersection you're interested in referring to in addition to 49th Street?
I may be mistaken, Larry. I thought that's what I heard by some of the community people, but you could correct me.
No, it's true.
I feel like almost all the intersections were raised, like 40th, 45th, 47th, 49th, like.
Here we see 48,
all.
but we're also focused at 40th Street, which is something new and detailed, which was not included in this existing resolution, and maybe we need to tweak this a little bit to reference that slip lane there.
Yeah, I agree. We need to tweak the resolution. Jason, did you have your hand up? Or am
I did, but I lowered it, so. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, is there anything anybody would like to add?
Should we add the notion of data being actually presented and collected? Otherwise, it's kind of a, hey, let's do this.
Well, there are total, after doing this, there'll be a total of 6 car lanes, which is about as much as any avenue. It's almost essentially like a highway going up First Avenue. So there are 6, even after this, there'll be 3 up top, 3 on the bottom. So that's a lot of car lanes. And I mean, like, how many car lanes do we want going up First Avenue?
Well, any reduction in car lanes is a change to the car lanes, right?
Correct. Correct.
And
but still 6 car
and then
lanes.
there's all the safety concerns as well. But
Yeah.
again, and I agree with you, but that saying that it's a lot shouldn't just be saying, it should be backed up with some analysis. I mean, and this is not the first time from a DOT proposal that it's just like, this is how it's going to be done and this is what we are doing. Where is the evidence?
Right, the evidence informs other decisions and would be informing
It's
this.
always missing nothing. And that the data collection, even for, well, other proposals is will take 3 years. But why?
I don't think we should attack DOT personally.
No, but it's a
worthy
general,
of
it's not for
thing.
this.
I think it's worth
discussion.
adding on to the resolution that we'd like to collect data on the safety of this proposal.
Safety as well as traffic flow, both for bicycles as well as vehicular.
I think we can add for traffic flow. Evaluated for safety and traffic flow.
So, set evaluations.
Request ongoing data evaluation of safety and traffic flow.
Okay, so in this resolved or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new bullet point. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Should I stop sharing at this point?
I'm sharing at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sharing at this point, so that way the committee, both those who are in person and on Zoom, can be on the same page about the language of the resolution. So evaluations of the bike lane for
The safety and traffic flow. Just ongoing data collection to evaluate the bike lane for safety and traffic flow.
Okay.
Any other additions that people would like to see?
So I don't see the thing about the intersections.
Well, actually, they weren't specified in the first item, which I proposed the last time. And since this was general and we didn't have other specifics as to where the ingress was going to be, this is still fine.
So I don't think it takes, Larry, into account 49th Street or 40th
No.
Street. Okay, and that's what I was looking for.
Okay, hang on a second. No, it didn't specify either the location of the ingress or the location of the egress. So I thought that by leaving it general, it allowed for further refinement of this. Because at the time this was written, we didn't know anything.
Right, so why don't we put something?
Do you have something? Do you have something specific that you would like to propose? Because I do not.
So I would propose that in it, when we're saying, the further resolve thing, that emphasis needs to be placed on specific streets, for example, 40th Street and 49th Street, and data.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That's fine.
Right.
So the language would be.
I think that's essentially the ingress and egress from the tunnel.
Right, you could add that onto that.
Yeah.
Right, at the end of the sentence there, yeah.
So with respect to ingress and egress to the tunnel. It currently says deconflicting bicycles and motor vehicles whose paths intersect. What else should be added or modified to that?
Comma, for example, at East 40th Street and East 49th Street. Is that the correct if those are the correct locations?
Yes, and 45th.
I'm sorry, what's at 45th? That's underneath that's above the tunnel.
I think that's a separate bullet point
Oh,
because it's
oh,
not
I
in
see.
egress
To
or
and from
ingress.
the
Yeah.
tunnel. I see, I see.
Is that an accurate reflection of what committee members would like?
Yes, it is. For me, it is.
It is for me.
Would
And
anybody?
I have one other comment, if I can. Somehow, I would like our resolution to emphasize that we would like to take advantage of the opportunity to do this now and work on perfecting it later. I think we have an open window to do this, and I'm concerned if we don't do this now, we're waiting another couple of years. So I'd like to get that as part of one of the reasons for moving it and supporting it at this point. Does anyone else agree with me, or you have different thoughts?
I go along with that. Do you have a whereas that you'd like to suggest?
Let me go back up, Brendan.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe after the first one.
So right after, you just said it, right after the first one, whereas there appears to be an open opportunity to have the preliminary design implemented in currently, and to make changes later on.
Does that look right to you, B?
Should we mention how long it might take? Because I think they said the roads are paved every 7+ years.
So I would
actually,
have to
instead of
say, when you said preliminary, when open opportunity currently, instead of waiting, I think they said, what, 4 years, 3 years?
oh,
think you're
7.
well, instead of currently, maybe imminently.
Imminently, or
Imminently. I am.
Would anybody have an objection to asking for a stop sign on First Avenue going north as you hit 49th Street on the west side of the First Avenue? So the cars aren't going at speed as they enter the intersection.
I think we could make that more general traffic control devices. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
I have a little bit of an objection to that, as in that, not to pigeonhole DOT for the solution to be a stop sign or yield sign or whatever, and then potentially giving them the opportunity to utilize the signals or other solutions there. And I think we already addressed that we want to ensure they deconflict that intersection.
Well, it might be appropriate to throw it in as a suggestion in the whereases, to look at future control devices that should be considered to further deconflict. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't disagree with the stop sign. I just there may be better solutions that we're not going to come to on the meeting.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's my concern. I don't know if that's the ideal solution. Yeah,
I retract.
Right.
Oh, okay. So we're still good.
Brandon?
Just one very basic thing. Since DOT has presented I don't know about its final design, but something close to its final design, are we safe to eliminate this final whereas clause from, or the final resolve clause, excuse me?
I think we want to see the final design.
Okay, so keep this resolved. Just checking, since I don't know if it's the final design, but something close to it.
That's fair. Yeah, we can keep that. Yeah. No harm.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anybody like to call for a vote?
Sorry, one
Call
comment.
Yes, please.
The last bullet under be it further resolved ongoing data collection. It's not just the bike lane, right? It's like the complete design. That's
The project,
yes. Okay.
project design.
Okay. And any more comments or anybody like to call for a vote?
But so very, very quickly, could we change that to the area for safety at traffic flow?
Is that good?
Yeah, I think just to more broadly, the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay.
No.
Call
Should I
the
call the
question?
question?
Okay, it looks
Second.
like we have two call to questions, so I'm gonna count that as a second. Okay, so, we will now take a vote by roll call. When your name is called, please answer yay, nay, abstain, or not entitled. Brendan will conduct vote by roll call.
Sounds good. B. Disman,
Yay,
Rob Friedman,
Yay.
Jason Fromwitz,
In favor.
Marion Rowe,
Yay.
Larry Shire,
Yay.
Gabe Terzo,
Yay.
Jerry Weinstein,
A,
Hader Zaidi.
not in favor.
Okay, with 7 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions, this resolution passes committee.
Okay, and so let's move along to the report from the NYC DOT.
I don't see Colleen still on, unfortunately.
So Hayes, you're up.
No, I did my part. That's Colleen's area.
We want to talk to you about repaving.
Okay.
Do you have anything to do with milling and paving?
I have a tiny bit to do. It depends on what your question is.
Go
I'm
ahead.
guessing we're talking about the same thing, but go ahead,
Go ahead,
Sandy.
Sandy.
So Second Avenue has been milled, and it means that there's no longer a bike lane on Second Avenue. So
Right.
cars are parking directly next to the curb, and then people are double parking next to that. So that now bicyclists have to go into the middle of Second Avenue. So my understanding is any construction project, you really have to have a temporary bike lane. And I do not, I mean, it's been over a week already of this condition, so I'm wondering why we either can't work out a schedule where you pave right after milling, or you make a temporary identification of a bike lane.
So thank you. That's a very good question. And that is actually something I can answer. So actually a temp bike lane line should have been installed Friday night for the length of the milled surface from 57th down to 41st Street. And so that should have been addressed. Also, paving of the street should be happening sometime next week, weather permitting. I will say the reason for keeping a street open for typically 2 weeks, it allows the utility companies to come in and do all their necessary utility work without interrupting and destroying a newly repaved surface. So we coordinate with the utility companies monthly to make sure that they know that the resurfacing is happening so that they can get in during that 2-week window, take care of business. We can pave. They like it because they don't have to pave, and we like it because they're not damaging our asset.
Is there some reason you didn't put the temporary bike lane in immediately after it was milled?
I can't answer that. It typically, say that again, I'm sorry.
We still don't see it. Our office is near Second Avenue. It's between Second and Third, and I checked it out this morning. I still don't see it.
Yeah, it is not in place.
Okay, well, sometimes one thing that happens with the milled surface is that there's a lot of roadway debris. So when the marking does go down, and it's supposed to be a 4-inch line, when it goes down, sometimes it goes down on the crushed stone that is just loosely settling on the roadway surface. And so over time, if vehicles track over it, it will disappear. Also, we had, a pretty heavy rainstorm over the past few days, so that can, depending on how well it applied to the milled surface, it can disappear. I will certainly follow up to see what's what, but as I mentioned, next week at some point in time, weather permitting, the street should get repaved, but I will follow up with that, just so that.
And just so you know, it was never painted.
Right. No, I will acknowledge that during the course of the first few days, it did not get the bike lane line, the temporary bike lane line, and it was brought to our attention. I also investigated it, and so we dealt with it. So I do apologize for that. We are, improving our coordination every day. So
one other thing, I saw a pedestrian trip and fall on the ragged surface. So again, it's more than bicycles; it's pedestrians as well.
Right. No, and I recognize that when the roadway is milled, they have to mill around all the utility covers. That ends up being exposed, and depending on where it's positioned, it can become a tripping hazard. However, the crews there's actually a special crew that is called to Make Safe, and they're responsible for putting asphalt ramps around all of the utility covers, so that it's not a hazard to pedestrians, it's not a hazard to cyclists or even the motorists.
Larry?
I'd like to make a suggestion, following the example of summer streets, where there is a signage at intersections which tell pedestrians and bicyclists which side of Park Avenue or Lafayette Street to travel on. You could lay out some barrels, a whole line of barrels or cones with such signage at the beginning of each block at the intersection, indicating that there's a bike lane on the left side of the sign and that all vehicular traffic is going to be on the right.
That's a very good suggestion. That's actually something that we started to employ actually on 2nd Avenue in the lower section in the village. But over time, we found that people were starting to recognize that what that line meant. Now it's not always perfect, and so that's why we stopped using barrels. We used to put barrels at the beginning of the block to demarcate where the parking lane should be. That included signage as well. We also posted signs along the corridor or the blocks to also provide notice to motorists that the bike lane is still there, it's just not marked, and so to just move aside. And the barrels at the beginning of the block, middle of the block, and end of the block was to help with that. We've made some design changes sometimes to, if there was some blatant disregard for that, and actually just lined the bike lane with the barrels. But as probably you all recognize too, barrels do have a way of moving. Sure. and that becomes much more of a maintenance headache for DOT, who will then have to just monitor it almost on an hourly basis. And I, for one, have done that in the past to see how well it was operating, and so I recognize that it's useful, but it can soon fail if you have commercial trucks coming in that want to get right to the curb. They'll just move everything, and then it becomes disorganized, and then it becomes a little bit more of a safety hazard for everybody because the barrels are now placed all over the place.
Well, bear in mind, this is a special case where there's a lot of traffic coming into Manhattan that's egressing the 59th Street Bridge there, who are facing an unfamiliar situation, many of them not familiar with what you would say folks in the East Village might become familiar with. And at least at the very beginning of it here, it might be worth monitoring it and putting it out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, agree with all those comments. Thank you, Hayes, for being a good sport. Second Avenues are only southbound lane for cyclists, so it's kind of a big deal. All right, so let's move on to chair's report, which I'm going to waive unless I give Jason the opportunity to say anything.
All right, I'll just say good night to everybody. Have a good
yet.
one. Oh, no?
Not yet.
Uh-oh.
Well, Hayes, you can go.
Yeah.
You sure? Yeah, I give you a
Yeah.
minute.
You've been a good sport, Hayes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Bye.
All right. So
Your
there is-
report to waive. Yeah, I don't know.
There is some new business here. Sandra just got notification that the NYC EDC, which is the New York City Economic Development Corporation, is applying to the Environmental Protection Agency for a Clean Ports program to the tune of $429.5 million. What would we get for that money? Well, we would get electrification of ferries in the East River and along the Brooklyn waterfront, and they would electrify the storage equipment devices and electrify the cargo handling rather than using fossil fuels. And apparently it would create about 1,500 direct or indirect jobs here. So the ask is, let's discuss it and see whether this is something that this committee can support.
I'm sorry, they'll electrify what?
The ferries, right? The ferries are using emitting greenhouse gases, as are the storage handling in the ports. And so this would electrify the ferries and the ports. Jerry.
So coming from square one, I raised the question of what this looks like on a balance sheet. There was a lot of criticism. I love the ferries about the outsized price. Does this make it a wash? Does this make it a net positive, apart from the sustainability aspect?
Well, the ferry is the most subsidized form of transit or public transit that we have. So I don't think it
federally subsidized as opposed to municipally subsidized.
I don't think it will change. It will still, of course, need subsidies, but it won't be running on fossil fuels. And the ports handling will not either.
Also, I'm scrolling through this letter, but if I'm scrolling too quickly, let me know.
B.
I'm looking at the amount that Brendan just scrolled to, that we're requesting $429.5 million. What I don't like is when there's such a large request made for money and there's no discussion of how it's going to be allocated, how it's going to be controlled. This is like an open-ended situation. And I also am concerned because I support the ferries, but they are very subsidized. So if I'm looking at where is the money going to go as opposed to other public transportation, I am not so sure with such generalization that I could support something like this.
So where should that money go?
So, I mean, $429.5 million is a lot of money. And how are they subdividing it? We know nothing about what this really means for the stuff in our area as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's unlikely money from the EPA Clean Ports program would possibly be used for, the subways or buses. I mean, I think it's either it goes to ports here or it goes to ports in, Baltimore or somewhere else. Also judging by how other forms of transportation have electrified, there's nothing here and I don't have any, anything in front of me, but it is likely to decrease operational costs after the upfront investment is exercised?
Maintenance or?
Well, just because it'll be cheaper to run on
Just,
electricity and fuel.
Jason?
Yeah, I share B's concern as well, that with how inefficient the operation of the ferries are. And I have some hesitation to support a large further investment into the ferry system, given its current state of extreme inefficiency. I'm not strongly opposed to this, but I have concerns about asking for additional funding, even though the funding I support it being more green, but I question the value of continued large investment in the ferry system.
Hayden, did you want to say something?
Surprisingly, I support this. But because I've actually seen the value and the convenience that the ferry routes bring, and I've seen increased usage of it. Again, I'm with you guys in terms of, you know what I mean, how is the allocation going to be done for money, right? Is this any more details would have helped, but conceptually, it's I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, Chair?
I have less issues about the subsidy than equity, since we know that the ferries have been disproportionately helping affluent people get from A to B. So just a footnote to that.
Yeah, Sandra?
I just think we should know what the money is actually going to be used for. It's only 3 ferry systems, but it's also the Red Hook Container Terminal and the Red Hook Barge, Great Balkan Railroad Terminal, electrifying cargo handling. So the ferries are actually what would directly affect us here in our district, but it's citywide. It's not just ferries. And the ferries right now use low sulfur diesel. So if we're going to continue to use ferries, we should probably try and utilize a more, environmentally friendly fuel.
Yeah, I think I'm supportive of this. I think 429.5 million sounds like a lot to all of us, but on a federal level, I think that's chump change. Larry, what do you think?
There's one ferry that's already being built for the government ferry to Governor's Island that's going to be all electric. And this would be an example of the way that we could go and retrofit our existing fleet. There'll be lower maintenance costs, like with the motor vehicles on the highways. And the biggest concern about marine diesel fuel is that it is the dirtiest fuel allowed on the planet. And it's comparable to what we were using in the buildings when they were using number 6 heating fuel, actually much dirtier when they're using bunker fuel. The passenger ship, cruise ships were supposed to convert to plug-in diesel. I don't know whether they've done it yet. I don't see that mentioned here, but all told, this would be a huge win for the environment.
Yeah, Mary.
Is this a part of the blue, what was it called? Some blue thing on the
Yes.
water.
Blue highway.
I think it's
Blue highway?
the Blue Highway certificate.
So it's not connected? And it would be nice if it was. 'Cause
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's about using water more sustainably, but it's not directly.
Okay.
I don't think. Like they talk about the terminal, but yeah. That may be part of it.
Because it involves some ports.
But did you mind going back to what it supports? So the Red Hook Container Terminal, I'm not sure if that's the cargo handling there, maybe part of the blue,
Okay.
the blue whatever.
The Blue Highway.
Blue Highway.
Right, we do know that Red Hook is inundated with trucks right now.
Yeah. And you can see the brown smoke coming off some of those ferries. It's pretty disgusting.
Okay, any other comments on this?
So can I ask if there's a rush to do this? are they looking for this fiscal year's money from the feds? I mean, why do we have to rush through without more details?
I can,
Yeah, please.
we were given this by, the EDC, I believe, 3 days ago. And they're asking for signatures by tomorrow.
So, Sandy, I always have problems with that because you can never go into anything with the level of details, and this is so generalized that it really raises questions.
Including, in fact, the strategy. And any other comments by committee members? Okay, Michael, you want to comment?
Yeah. So there seems to be a lot in the proposal about converting the passenger ferries to electricity in New York City ferry. What about the freight ships as well, like tugboats and things like that? What about getting those converted to electricity?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's part of Blue Highway project pending. I think that's a great point. Larry?
I'd be prepared to propose a resolution supporting the concept and bearing in mind what Bea was saying about not being fully aware of the details. We may never know what the details are if it's just a pool of money that is being applied for without the specificity requiring ultimate submissions of proposals for approval on the federal level. That may be the way it actually has to work.
Okay. Can we, Sandy, add to the letter that we request more?
No, we either sign a letter or we don't.
Okay. So, Larry, do you want to ask
I've got to go into surgery. I can't actually write anything here.
No, did you want to call for a vote on whether we agree with this letter?
Well, don't we have to do a resolution? Don't we speak through resolution?
Yes, we need a resolution.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Please.
The 3 routes, are they all like the East River, Soundview,
They're all the East
Astoria? So just thinking about equity again, like, are they gonna go into Brooklyn at all, or?
Oh, they all.
They were right ahead already.
They go to Brooklyn Equity.
Yeah.
Well, the East River stops at Wall Street.
No,
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking more of like South Brooklyn. Sorry.
Soundview's in the Bronx.
Yeah, okay.
Coney, the port has problems.
Our Soundview ferry, for those who are concerned about economic equity, serves some low-income areas in the Soundview area of the Bronx, Ferry Point Park as well. And so I think since I'm a frequent rider there, I can confirm that it's not a bunch of rich people.
Yeah. I forgot about Brooklyn, because when I think about the East River stops, I mean, I don't count Dumbo and Williamsburg and Greenpoint as like low income places.
That's a different route.
There is a lot of NYCHA housing along the East River as well.
Right, on the Astoria
South
route,
side,
the
yeah.
Astoria route there.
And the Cove, the 21-21st Street, whatever that stop's called.
Stuyvesant
Cove
yeah.
is right there. There's nice housing right there.
Mm.
Well,
And then South Brooklyn stops in Sunset Park, and we pick up a lot of people. I think we're just victims of the popular blogs.
Gabe?
I'm fully aware there are a lot of legitimate questions about this, but given the nature of the options in front of us, I would like to have a motion to vote yes or no on whether or not we support this in a resolution.
Okay. Any second? Okay.
I'll second it, Larry.
So we're going to vote on a resolution in favor of signing this letter.
I do have one quick question, not being able to read this closely. Is there any mention of the cruise ships?
It's terminals. Well,
They say freight terminals.
Yeah, so it says cruise terminals, shore power.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. It's there.
So,
Okay,
yes.
I'm good.
Okay, so Brendan, you do the roll call.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Pete Isbin,
Opposed?
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz,
In favor.
Marion Rowe,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
In favor.
Jerry Weinstein,
In favor.
and Hyder Zaidi.
In favor.
It's 7 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. This resolution passes.
So we need somebody to write the resolution.
Yes.
Any volunteers?
We need this, what, midnight?
You just in the next 20 minutes.
Got it.
Just take the resolution, like the
The-
template.
It'd be nice and simple.
Take the kind of, a lot of the phrasing is already there in the letter.
Just say, you can just say that, we support the letter as.
As we have been
That's all we have.
strong armed.
Okay, and we need that by tomorrow, correct?
Oh,
Okay.
I can email you the letter right after the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Gabe, for doing that.
Yes.
Lightest resolution you've ever read.
I'd rather do that than the minutes. for
Do we have any other old or new business anybody would like to bring up?
No, just a thought, is the onus on us, should it be to circle back to the Sondheim folks?
I think how we left it was, they were gonna do their due diligence and get back to us, right?
I haven't heard anything further recently from them.
And a new business that we have is, we always get these requests for loading zones. And they're kind of one-offs the way I understand we've been dealing with them, not talking about Trader Joe, I'm talking about like apartment buildings. And the question for the group is, I was thinking that maybe any apartment building that has 10 or more apartments in it needs a loading zone. Or some number like that. So, because there's so many deliveries coming in and anyway, not that we're gonna pass a resolution, but maybe I think it's something to think about over the summer of that we should come up with a recommendation for residential loading zones as a group.
You said how many apartments? 10 or more?
I mean, I would think an apartment building with 10 apartments would need a loading zone for disabled people coming in, all the Amazon deliveries coming in. There has to be a number at which we would think that an apartment needs a loading zone.
Per building or per block?
Per building, like my building has over 250 apartments in it, so.
So I'm at about 10 units.
Yeah.
We don't need a loading.
Yeah.
Same, 6, no.
We have 100.
You still don't need a loading zone at 100?
We're on it's a left turn lane, so either they get right left turn lane or we have a loading dock. The left turn lane's probably a better.
Yeah, well, I still think we need to explore loading zones on a citywide basis, and if it's not that number, we should come up with a plan. So my challenge for this group is to think about it over the summer and think about a recommendation that we can make for loading zones. If it's not a number, it needs to be something else. And that's all I have. And so is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Are there any objections to adjourning? Okay, we